Podcast Vlog number 16, a blog of ice and fire. So, if you've been watching my blogs, you'd know that for a little while now I've been done with Pokemon. Pokemon's done. No more. I've totally received no questions if I'm going to be doing X and Y, and there's going to be no answer. So, without further ado, today we're talking about Game of Thrones, or as the hardcore book fans call it, like me, A Song of Ice and Fire. Why are we talking about books like this? I know a lot of people that have a problem about fantasy. It's all like, ooh, swords and magic and dragons, ooh. But I've read a lot of fantasy books, and one thing that bores me is the fights. They usually just go about like, oh, he swung his sword and they had a dance of steel and their swords sang with victory, and it's just like the whole battle lasts in one paragraph. But with George R.R. Martin, he actually tells you the whole scene. In the book, it describes the Hound's actions very nicely, and you can actually imagine him with a wooden shield and his sword, and he's fighting off against this fiery sword, and this fiery sword sets his shield ablaze, so he pulls it off, and his arm's a little burned. He shakes it off while he's defending, and when they adapted it onto the TV screen, the battle was pretty much word for word for what what he wrote in the book. It was like he was writing a script. So when he does that, it seriously does not become a complete, it does not become a dance. Similar to, stick your sword arm in, you take your sword arm out, stick your sword arm in, and you swing it all about. You do the hokey pokey, and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. George R. R. Martin's battles are not the hokey pokey. And that's what makes this book so freaking awesome. Now, there's just so much in depth in this story, and there's just so many characters. At this point, there's only the 5 books of the main story, that is. So, there's a lot of speculation about Jon Snow's mother. Now, it's not similar to the whole thing of oh, Lily is a Death Eater. No, it's nothing stupid like that. There's actual evidence that it's actually something major. Now, the story is so in-depth and involved, we only can do it part by part. This part we are talking about Jon Snow, and to help me talk about it is my friend, Nick. Now, she's more of my, internet-savvy techie, because searching breaks me. So, she's going to help me on the internet side, and I'll be doing the book side. Now, the importance of Jon Snow. For those who haven't read the book, there's going to be massive spoilers. Oh no! Spoilers in a video talking about the story? How could you do this to us? So, yeah. Spoilers. So. Spoilers. We know Jon Snow is at the Wall. He's defending the people from the Wildlands. And everybody in the whole realm of Westeros mocks the fact that they're all protected from Scrumpkins and giants and ooh, boogeyman, ooh. There's probably a Slender Man in there or two in there as well. So they don't think that the Wall is a massive important thing. It's just a place that criminals go to escape their judgment. So, Jon Snow is a bastard, which is why his last name is Snow. He was born from Eddard Stark, and Eddard refuses to tell people who his mother is. He doesn't even tell Jon Snow. So, in the first book, there's a passage where he's talking to Robert. Get off that! He's talking with Robert about the good old days. Like going off, meeting women. In Eddard's chapter, page 92, he's talking with Robb, his friend, Robert, King Robert. He is talking with King Robert, and they're talking about, like, the old days. And Ned tells him, it's like, yeah, would that we could, but we have duties now, my liege, to the realm, to our children, to my lady wife, and you, to your queen. We are not the boys we were. So, Robert grumbles, and he's like, oh, more's the pity. And yet there was that one time. What was her name? A common girl of yours. Becca? No, she was one of mine. Gods love her black hair and these sweet big eyes. You could drown in them. Yours was Alina? No, you told me once. Was it Meryl? You know the one I mean, your bastard's mother. Her name is Wyla, Ned replied with cool courtesy. And I would sooner not speak of her. So, it seems like Eddard does not want to talk about Jon's mother, and he actually asks his own king, his friend, not to mention it. In the show, I have a suspicion that George Martin might have told Sean Bean who his Jon's mother might actually be, because that look on his face when Robert says, your bastard's mother. And then when he just goes, Wyla, he's just, you can see in his face, he does not want to talk about it. So, Eddard mentions Wyla, and that's the only time we hear about her in the first book. But there's this kid that Arya was traveling with in the third book.
Whoever Jon's mother had been, Ned must have loved her fiercely, but nothing Catelyn said would persuade him to send the boy away. See, this is more evidence, I think, on the Lyanna side. Okay.
In the third book, page 494, she comes across a person named Ned. And he's talking to Arya, and he says, you have a base-born brother, Jon Snow? She replies, he's at the Night's Watch. How do you know about Jon? And then Ned says, he is my milk brother. So she's confused because this guy's Ned Sands from Dorne.
Ned Sands?
Yeah, I think it's Sands.
Isn't this Edric Dane?
Oh no, you're right. He is Dane.
Yeah, this is the Lord of Starfall. He's not a Dwarvish bastard.
So Ned Dane, he says, I was his milk brother. My lady mother had no milk when I was little, so Wyla had to nurse me. And he goes to further explain, Jon Snow's mother, he never told you? She'd served us for years and years, since before I was born. So Arya is all confused, of course. So he replies that Wyla was his wet nurse. I swear it on the honor of my house. Yeah, it's Edric Dane, the Lord of Starfall. Alright, so later on, Ngai the archer rode up to her, and when he caught up to her, she said, Dornismen lie, don't they? He goes, they're famous for it. Of course, they say the same of us marchers, so there you are. What's the trouble now? She tells him what happened. He says, I doubt there's truth. Yeah, I doubt there's any truth to it. But if there is, what of it? When Ned met this Dornish lady, his brother Brandon was still alive. And it was him betrothed to Lady Catelyn, so there's no stain on your father's honor. There's not like attorney to make the blood run hot, so maybe some words were whispered in a tent of a night. Who can say? Spring had come, or so they thought, and neither of them was pledged. So apparently, Ned's mother was supposedly had flung herself from the tower.
Aunt.
What?
Ashara was his aunt.
Yeah.
You said mother.
I meant Jon's mother.
Oh.
He said that Jon's mother had flung herself from the tower.
That's Ashara Dane. No, it's not Wyla.
Yeah, Ashara Dane. True. Alright.
We're gonna have to edit
This is why we need you. Alright. Ned Dane said that his aunt threw herself off the tower. She'd lost a brother, the Sword of the Morning. He shook his head. Let it lie, my lady. They're dead, all of them. Let it lie. And please, when we come to Riverrun, say none of this to your mother. So, that just adds more to the suspicion about what is so important about Jon's mother. Now, they're trying to keep it a secret from Catelyn, but with Eddard's reaction, I think he's trying to keep it from Robert as well. But then the question, it's obvious why he's trying to keep it a secret from Catelyn, but why is he keeping it a secret from Robert as well?
Look at the commentary.
Yeah, you can jump in with that one.
Alright, well, I'll leave the Robert thing for later, but in regards to Ned Dane, I really think it makes a lot of sense for the people in that area to, for it to be common gossip that Wyla the wet nurse is Jon's mother, because apparently Ned, after going to the Tower of Joy where he found Lyanna, went down to Starfall to deliver Arthur Dane's body and, the Great Sword Dawn to his sister, Ashara, who was supposed to be the Dane in the tower at the time. Starfall. So if the Wyla thing is to be true, Wyla would likely have been the attendant to the Dane family, who would have been party at the tourney of Harrenhal, and things got heated between them, and therefore Jon was born. The theory would have been that Ned would have gone to Starfall, would have discovered his son, and brought them home together. But, I don't give much credit to the Wyla theory myself, because I have other theories. If Wyla had been pregnant at the time, giving birth to Jon, she would have been a perfect candidate to have been Eddard Dane's, Ned Dane's milk mother, wet nurse, and probably would have nursed Ned for Lady Dane, who is, I believe, the son of the thus unnamed older Dane brother. We know the living through. But, the whole Starfall, tail end of Robert's Rebellion, the Tower of Joy, the whole thing is still a big mystery, and that actually leads more into the next couple of theories about Jon Snow's mother, which are a lot more popular. So, you want to start with Ashara Dane? Chris? Alright, so there is a story that was it Jojen or Mira Reed that told Bran?
It was Mira.
Alright, Mira told a story to Bran sometime in their travels about it was about about wolves at a tourney. No, it was okay. The story was supposed to be about the tourney of Harrenhal, is what's being speculated. It refers to the characters in the book, specifically the Stark family at the time, as the wolves. The she-wolf, the young wolf, the quiet wolf, Benjen, Lyanna, and Ned. It refers specifically to the beast. Rhaegar played, Lyanna cried, Benjen laughed at her, she poured wine over his head. Just basic family interactions. Refers to Ashara, how Brandon had gotten Ashara to dance with Ned or something like that. Am I right? Is this how it went down?
Yes.
Alright. And and that implies that was actually our first glimpse of a possible romantic attachment between Eddard Stark and Lady Ashara Dane, who those don't know was the younger sister of the younger sister of the Lord of Starkville at the time. The oldest daughter of the Dane children, there are 4 of them. The unnamed Lord, Ashara, Arthur Dane, who was a member of the Kingsguard, and Illyria, who was the younger sister, who was actually betrothed to Beric Dondarrion, I believe. And I believe the only one still living is Illyria. Ashara was a Starkville, is a Dane. Dorne. So they are liege lords of. No, they are lords sworn to House Martell of Dorne, and as such, Ashara Dane was one of Princess Elia Martell Targaryen's personal attendants. So with the prince and the princess being in attendance at the tourney of Harrenhal, it makes sense that Elia's ladies-in-waiting would be at the tourney, including Ashara. Now, there's a later passage in later books where Barristan Selmy, who's a former member of the Kingsguard, had a really great affection for Lady Ashara. He comments about the tourney, and specifically about the rumor that Ashara was pregnant and gave birth sometime during Robert's Rebellion. Now, his personal belief that her child was a stillborn girl, and that the child had been sired by one of the Stark brothers, being Brandon or Ned. Now, therein lies the theory that Ned and Ashara are Jon Snow's parents, and that Ashara is his mother. Okay, the reference is all the way back to book 1 in Caitlyn's inner dialogue about how there were rumors at the very beginning of when Ned brought Jon home. It references the rumors already of Ashara Dane being Jon's mother. And as Chris referenced earlier, she apparently committed suicide by jumping from the tower, the highest tower at Starkville, when Ned brought her brother and his soul at home. His body, I mean. And that can make sense if she, if her lover had just suddenly killed her brother, her very beloved brother, if rumors would believe, that would make a mess of anybody's emotions. Now, she's said to be beautiful. They were said to have danced at the tourney, but that's only the real reference to any kind of romance between them. But Caitlyn, in her inner dialogue in the first book, is obviously insecure, believes that whoever John's mother was, Ned loved her very powerfully, very fiercely, because Ned refuses absolutely to talk about John's mother. Um, apparently the one time she asked him directly, he got very, very angry. The one time that he ever lost his temper with her, and he forbade her from ever talking about John's mother again. Now, if this is the product of his grief and his love for Ashara or some other secret, we don't know. But apparently, as soon as Caitlin brought this to his attention, Ned put an end to those rumors about Ashara very, very fast. There's theories going around if Ashara is John's mother. Either Ned planned to take him away to raise him in the north, or he took John because Ashara had killed herself. We don't know. It's obvious that John has no. It's said in the narrative that John's features are purely stark. There's no trace of Dorne in him.
I want to interject here. While Mira was telling Bran the story about the tourney and the Night of the Laughing Tree, Jojen kept interrupting, saying, "Are you sure your father didn't tell you this story? Your father told you this story. I'm pretty sure he did. Why hadn't your father told you this story?" He's like so obsessed about Ned telling Bran this story for some reason.
And this leads us into what's probably the most popular theory regarding Jon Snow's mother.
Yes.
In my personal opinion, that Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen are actually Jon's biological parents.
Now, before you go, what? There's a lot of subtle hints throughout this series. It's like pretty much as subtle as Dumbledore being gay. I do want to point out that Rhaegar did announce that Lyanna was the most beautiful woman in the kingdom.
Alright, to fully encompass the Rhaegar-Lyanna saga, I think we need to go back just a few days in that timeline. Specifically, the Night of the Laughing Tree.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm leading into.
Sorry, my bad. So, referencing earlier to that story that we were talking about that Mira had told to Bran, the actual beginning of the story was when Howland had attended the tourney, and he'd been assaulted by these squires. And apparently Lyanna was the one that came to his rescue, backed up by her brothers. And because of that, Howland was sitting with them that night. He saw all this stuff that went down at the feast. The Ashara, Stark brothers things. But also, what was a really big reference is Rhaegar was playing that night. He was playing his harp, and Lyanna, who was characterized as fierce and wild, started crying at some. And we believe this is, a big thing for her. But we have to remember that she's 14 at the time. She also got embarrassed when Benjamin laughed at her, pulled one over his head. Now, it is referenced that the next day, a mystery night was in the lineup at the Night of the Laughing Tree. Now, I believe his reference is being short.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, small, but enough to take down all these squires that had assaulted Howland Reed the previous day. He had them all been beating in lines, and Aerys the Mad, the king at the time, being his paranoid, delusional self, this night doing his deeds, kind of disappeared. Since they didn't know the identity of this night, Aerys got really paranoid, demanded that he be arrested, and he sent his son to do it. Now a popular theory among among the Rhaegar Lyanna theorists is that Rhaegar found the Knight of the Laughing Tree, and that it ended up being Lyanna, who has been said by Ned before that she would have practiced swords if she could have, if the father had committed it. She was a great. She's said by many characters that been a great rider. You know, horses. She could keep her saddle very well. I mean, this was even in what's his name? Bruce Bolton's
Wait
chapter.
a minute.
What?
How do you know all this? You hadn't read throughout the entire series yet. Are you reading the Rickies again?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I plead the fifth. This is just knowledge. I'm just wise. Let's just leave it at that.
And next time I get a guest person, I'm going to screen them, make sure they've read the entire book. Continue.
It's not as if these wikis aren't accurate and reference the book. It's not like
That
I'm
is
reading
true.
this off just a chat line.
Anyway,
Westeros.org.
continue.
Thank you for his untimely interruption. You know. Anyway, now later in the tourney, it is extremely common knowledge. This has been said throughout the books that Rhaegar is the one who won the tourney at Harrenhal, and instead of crowning his wife, anyway, Rhaegar crowned her as the Queen of Love and Beauty, and this was a big scandal. Now, this can be interpreted in two ways, I believe. One, that he had some kind of developing attraction, and he crowned her as such. And honestly, knowing Rhaegar's character, that is not my favorite theory. My favorite theory instead is this is a way of showing respect for what she did. It was very daring, very brave, and I think he probably respected that, liked it even a little. And this is also another theory. You know, this is more out of respect and acknowledgement of the secret between them. That's the reason they crowned her as queen.
There's also another small theory. I don't have much evidence to back it up. I'll explain a little later why I have this theory, but I also think that Eddard had fallen, instead of Dane, he fell in love with the queen, or princess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because she was there, and it did mention something about Ned Stark hanging out with her. Because I remember a passage describing this like she had laughing purple eyes.
Not the queen. Queen was Dornish.
Yeah, I know the queen. I know the queen was Dornish. I meant like Rhaegar's like sister or something. Can't remember her name.
Have a sister. Laughing purple eyes is reference to Lady Ashara.
It is okay. So anyway, how am I going to reword this? Anyway.
So much more to the whole Lyanna Rhaegar thing. I mean, the storyline just keeps developing, but this is where it said it started.
Now, there's no real good reason why he kidnapped her, besides being in love with her. So Robert starts his rebellion not to take down the Mad King because of his shady ruling, but it was to get Lyanna back.
And now, see, this is where the whole love theory just kind of goes wrong for me, because what we know of Rhaegar is he's supposed to have been, you know, besides being very popular, he's supposed to have been very level-headed, very intelligent. And why on earth would he make this move, this irrational move that ignited the entire realm in the war?
Now,
there's a lot we don't know, but
My theory is that Lyanna left with him,
that's my belief as well.
and she didn't tell Robert because she didn't want to crush his heart, and Rhaegar was supposed to be married. In the first book, page 355, Eddard's chapter, he mentions about he has an old dream. And in the dream, he's gathering up with 5 knights to take on the rest of the Mad King's guard, who was holed up in a tower where Lyanna was. So he comes against Arthur Dayne. And Arthur Dayne says, "And now it begins." So he pulls out his sword, and Ned, very sorrowful, says, "No, now it ends." And this is like the only time that they don't have a like blow by blow battle scene, but it's mainly because it's his dream, and the whole battle is like, as he describes, a rush of steel and shadow. So the battle's not the important part of this. The important part is that he could hear Lyanna screaming, "Eddard!" Storm of rose petals blew across the blue-screened sky, as blue as the eyes of death. "Lord Eddard," Lyanna called again. "I promise," he whispered. "Lyanna, I promise." And that's all we know of the dream. But what did he promise? It obviously was not, he was promising not to kill Arthur Dayne, because he killed him.
What was Lyanna dying from?
That's another thing they don't mention.
Eddard mentions a fever and the smell of blood. Is this in the aftermath of childbirth? As she gave birth to Rhaegar's child and she's now dying? Is the promise for Ned to take care of her child and not reveal a thing? Robert? Or is this his own delusion?
Which would be why he's keeping the secret from Robert.
The death of Rhaegar's children in King's Landing has been, the source of a lot of speculation. Who was the one who gave the order for Tywin's bannermen kill Princess Rhaenys and Prince Aegon, who was an infant at the time? Who was the one who gave the order? Did Tywin know? Did Robert know and just didn't want to know? But it's well known that Robert stood over the hoaxes and declared them dragon spawn. Showed no shame or remorse whatsoever over their deaths. Now, if Ned had returned home with, say, a half Targaryen child who was birthed by Robert's beloved Lyanna, what would have been Robert's reaction? Would he have called for the infant's death? Was the best solution Eddard could find was to claim the child as his own bastard, bring him home? Is this why he was so scared, so hesitant to talk about Jon's mother to anyone else?
Including Jon.
Eddard, who was the most honest man in the kingdom, was he scared of slipping up, revealing something that he didn't mean to reveal? These are all things we don't know. Now, there are a lot more speculation and theories we have, and the rest of the fandom has, to motivations of both Lyanna and Rhaegar, of why this whole mess happened, why they took off, and things like that. But it really leads into the subject we have for our next video, which is what, Chris?
Now, there's just a question that's been all over the place. Why is this important? Why is it important to know Jon Snow's mother? Now, the Targaryens has this thing where the dragon always has 3 heads. Now,
They're sigil.
huh?
It's their sigil.
Yeah, it's their sigil. But they're not talking about like a three-headed like Hydra. They're talking about 3 Targaryens conquering the world.
Aegon the First and his sister wives.
So now we have Daenerys, who has 3 dragons, and she cannot control all 3 of them. So a huge theory is that there's going to be 2 more people to help ride the dragons into battle and break Westeros from this Eternal King War. So,
one of these great theories that if Jon Snow is Rhaegar's son, that he is one of the heads of the dragons.
Exactly. That is why this is so massively important to not really figure out, but this is why everyone is obsessed with figuring out who Jon Snow's mother is. Another one of my theories is that I'll go into Bran a little bit more later, but he's gone through an event that allows him to see the past through the eyes of the weirwood trees. So I have a feeling in the 6th book, while he's continuously practicing this new power, he is probably going to see the event unfold about Jon Snow's mother. On the next blog of Ice and on the next blog of Ice and Fire, we plan on covering a little bit more about Daenerys and the legend of Lightbringer.
Yes. The theories of the Prince that was promised, Azor Ahai being reincarnated, and once again, this ties in with our theories more in depth of motivations regarding Rhaegar and Lyanna, which is why we haven't gone further into those later in the rebellion. We'll take a look at the next video. Yes?
Yes. So we've wasted enough of your time. Gonna sign off. Until next time. And always
remember, all men must die, and the Northman forgets.
So until next time, winter is coming.
For Ned and the big Stark room.